Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Art Made Achievable. Alright, so this episode's probably going to be a bit shorter than most of them because it's an introduction. I'm not going to get into actual drawing methods. I'm just going to get into the very, very basics of how to use this program. So, this is a free art program called Krita, or Krita, I'm not sure. Krita. It's free and it's very easy to download. It's not a huge download and it gets onto your computer quickly, so I highly recommend it. It works a lot like Paint Tool SAI or Photoshop, which is what a lot of digital artists use. So if you see digital art that looks fantastic, amazing, mind-blowing, you can probably replicate that same thing um, easily, quote unquote, with Krita or whatever. So, how you would do that in the very, very beginning is to create a new document. For some, this is super easy and super second nature. To some, this is brand new. I want to be the person who can be helpful to everybody. So, to those of you who are so new, the way that we would do that is to first open up Krita. This is the screen that you see when you download it fresh and when you open it for the first time. This is it. How we would accomplish this is to go to File, New. Right here is a column of all of the keyboard shortcuts. If I were to hit Control N at the same time, it would be the same as clicking on New. Then when you do that, this comes up. You have two options: to create a custom document or to create from clipboard. Creating from clipboard means that you are pasting in what has been copied or cut. I'm sure everyone knows Control C, Control X, copying and cutting, that concept. This would be the paste or the Control V. But we don't have anything on our clipboard. We're not going to create from clipboard. We're going to make a custom document. So we can customize the name. Unnamed is fine. Custom is fine. We have some predefined stuff. This is all very complicated. We're not gonna waste our time going into that right now. Save as, we can do that later. For now, let's worry about the width, height, and resolution. Resolution actually can wait as well. This is the basics. Width and height are what we're going to focus on. We see 1600 and 1200. What does that really mean? Well, it means pixels. That's counting the actual number of pixels in the document. But this can also be points. Cicero, pica, inches, decimeters, centimeters, millimeters. These are all measurements. We can do all of these. Now, not all of this is necessary. And for most intents and purposes, especially when it comes to uploading things on and using things for web or web design, we're going to want pixels. Sometimes you will see inches, centimeters, these sometimes. Points, PT, CC, and PI are again more advanced and probably not something you'll see until you get into higher level things, especially in professional photography. We'll get into that later if ever. Right now, pixels. 1600 by 1200 seems like an alright ratio. We'll stick at that. There are models. You're mostly probably going to be using RGB or CMYK. RGB for web stuff, for stuff that you'll be looking at and using on the computer. CMYK for stuff that you'll be printing. Again, this is commonly known: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Those are printing colors. But RGB, because since we're only going to be using this on the computer, RGB will be are what we use. So bits, again, not super important to go into right now. Bits refers to bits of information. Uh, it's hard to describe just within a few seconds. I don't want to spend too much time on all of this, but if you've ever heard of a 64-bit system or, an 8-bit console like Atari, these are those bits. Um, wow, there's a lot of profiles. We'll use the default. So that's everything. That's everything in the dimensions and content. The content is customizing what you'll be seeing in the actual Krita program. We'd be starting off with 2 layers. We'd be customizing the image background color, the opacity. We can set the background as a canvas color, or as a first layer, we can even set a description. Now, all of these things you can manipulate in the actual program itself. It's just we can uh, save the time and save the energy of doing this prerequisite and having this be the default for all of the new documents we create afterwards, uh, just so we can be efficient. These are the default settings. They seem fine. Um, yeah, and that's every option that you get when you first try to create a document. Everything seems good. We'll create. So it'll take a few seconds, but here we are. We are now in our new document. Now we can start getting into the meat of Krita, into the basics at least. All of this stuff seems to be very confusing, and we'll get into it more and more as this tutorial series goes on. But right now I want to focus on these little 2 bars right here. Okay, these 2 bars. Now, I mentioned that in the content section of creating a new document in Krita, you can default to starting with 2 layers. These are those 2 layers. You might be familiar with layers, you might not. It's good to have a refresher once in a while, even if you aren't. I think it's best to show you visually what layers are than try to get into it. Also, yeah, when you hover over you can see the properties, but okay. So, let's start on layer 1. First and foremost, on layer 1, if I hit this eyeball icon, it will make that layer disappear temporarily. It's still there, but it'll make it invisible, so I can see the layers above it or below it. When a layer is the first layer in a series, it means it's on the very bottom. To demonstrate this, I'll first create a circle. Not a very good circle, but a circle nonetheless. I can then create another circle, or another shape, in a different color. Because I'm on the second layer, as we can see right here, if I make this layer disappear or go invisible, it will not affect the layer below it or above it. It'll only affect that layer. Now, if I go to this icon, the move tool, I can move this little shape around. When I do this, we can see that this color, that this red shape is completely independent from the black circle beneath it. If I click and hold onto layer 2, I now have it grabbed. And if I drag it from its original position below layer 1, now you see it's gone. Why is it gone? That's because layer 1 has a white background. It's not a transparent background, it's white. It's filling a clear space with white. I can select the eraser tool, make it a very large size, select the correct layer, and start erasing, you'll see the original red shape. If I select the Move tool and move this layer around, you'll see it moves independently of the red shape as well. Kind of lagging. It's because I'm recording, sorry. But as that moves, you'll see that it and the red are completely independent and they can be moved. And it demonstrates the difference between a transparent background and a white background. When we created a new document, we defaulted the background to white. That means the background on the default first layer is set to white and not transparent. When a document has a white background, it's filling the blank space with the quote-unquote color of white. If I decide I don't even want this layer anymore, I can right-click on it, I can cut it, copy it, remove it entirely, that's delete. I can duplicate it, I can merge it to the layer below it, or I can flatten it. Flattening the image means to combine all the layers into one layer. It'll make it flat. Flattening the layer will flatten all of the layers tied to that layer, but that's kind of complicated and it's something we'll get into later. These are all different options that we'll again get into later in an episode completely dedicated to layers. For right now, I want to not duplicate it, I want to remove it. Now it's gone, and I can make a new one. Now this is layer 3, it's above the red layer. So when I start drawing, it'll go over the red, and when I drag it below, the red will appear on top. I can remove this layer, I can erase everything on this layer, and now I'm back to where, and now I'm not back to where I started, but I'm at a completely blank slate. To get back to where I started, I don't theoretically have to keep undoing all of my steps. I can take the Fill button tool, select white, which is this corner represented by white, which when you select a new color, it'll show you your new color and the previous color you had selected. Touch anywhere within the box, create a new layer, and now I'm back to where I started. And I can start drawing my circles and lines all again. This is the introduction. We'll get more into the layers, the colors, which I only very briefly touched upon. That'll be its own episode. And the tools, as well as everything up here. Right now, you just want to be concerned with file, which I'll touch upon that right at this very end. So let's make a circle. Wow, that's the best circle I've ever seen and I really want to save it. Well, I can. If I go to File, I have these two options, to save and to save as. Saving and saving as on a new document will be the same, functionally. But because I already named this as custom, save will just save this new copy over what I had before, under the name custom. To click Save As will open this new window and allows you to select any file or any directory. Let's save it to the desktop, because that's easy. Here's my custom file. Well, I want to name it something different. Red circle. I can also save it as any type of document. This is a CRITA document. It's the document that can only be opened in this specific program. I can save it as a lot of different things. GIF, which is a moving image, a GIMP file, which is another program, and many, many more. Let's be simple and let's save it as a PNG. Save. here's the compression. You have to compress when you're saving it as something as a file as PNG, JPEG, etc. Compressing it at 9 will save most of the fine detail, like this gradient. This is the transparent color. This is the color that it'll convert all the transparency to. But we know that transparency is represented by little gray and light gray squares. This isn't that. This is a white background, so we don't have to mess with this right now. When we click OK, we can go to our desktop, fancy desktop, I know, and double click on this red circle. It'll open up this document. Now we have our completed file, our completed project. We can save this to whatever directory we want. We can upload it wherever we want. And we did it all in this program. That concludes the introductory episode. Stay tuned for more. Like and subscribe if you did. Thanks.